and gentlemen, welcome to our Wednesday Live. I've got, it's Ian and I tonight. So thank you for being here. Inside Texas Football, powered by InsideTexas.com. We got some fun stuff to talk about today, not the least of which is our friends in Australia are joining us. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. All right. Earlier today, Ian, our friend Eric posted an article based on some sources about who's the best in each specific room throughout this spring. And I want to get to that. But before we do, there's a couple things of note, especially in the transfer portal, that I think are really important. The first is our very own Joe Cook has put out an RPM for a kicker, which is a position of need. This is young Mason Shipley. He's coming out of your backyard in Liberty Hill. And I'm just curious, how often, when you're in the bushes with your binoculars over the last 4 years, did you get a chance to see him, even though you were living in Michigan?
Great setup. No, I've heard about him, and there's actually another kicker in college football right now at, I want to say Vanderbilt, but I'm not totally sure, that is a Liberty Hill alum. It is apparently a place kicker factory, and they've got another one on campus now that I've heard about. That's good.
Well, so Mr. Shipley comes from a kicking family. His brother kicks at Hawaii, and this Mason Shipley has been kicking just down the street in San Marcos with our Bobcats. So this is something that our very own Joe Cook is putting a 60% confidence in, which for our young Joe, I think is pretty confident that this might be a fill of a position of need for Texas. And I know that you and I have talked about this a little bit in the offseason about how much the special teams have really kind of adversely affected us. I know that we had a really great start with young Bert Auburn at the beginning of last year, and then he got a bit of the yips and things didn't really end the way we wanted to. And there were some consequential issues to do with that. So
can you imagine if you're a young kicker and you have like a good year like he had at the previous
I know,
season,
right?
You get yips at the end of the year, and then that's it. You're out.
Well, I think it's really hard because what the Bert Auburn situation really showed me was just how much pressure these kids are under. And I think, it's really easy to put a spotlight and a microscope on someone like a kicker, right? Because they're very much, they're living on an island. It's make or break with whatever they do. But it's not that dissimilar from a cornerback or a defensive tackle. I mean, you've got to perform every single day because there's somebody waiting behind you. And unfortunately, we didn't really have somebody waiting behind Bert. So I think bringing in Mason Shipley or a kicker of his caliber is going to be good for Bert, frankly. It's going to provide certainly some competition that he didn't necessarily have last year. And I think that, who knows, maybe he can turn it around and become the Bert of old. But I agree with you.
You wonder also if there's still going to be a spot for Sideshow Bert if they bring in another kicker that they intentionally recruited out of the portal.
Well, do you think so? Let's say this goes down, right? And we decide to take someone like Mason Shipley. Given the time of everything, I mean, does that mean that when can he transfer? When can he get out if he needs to? I mean, it's a tough spot, right? He's in a tough spot right now, Bert. He's really got to step it up.
Do you have to wait for spring practice to end to enter the portal? I don't think so. The portal window
you do not. No, absolutely not. I mean, I agree with you. I think if this kid gets picked up, we could very well see Bert enter the portal pretty quickly. But again, it's not, I know that most teams don't carry 3 kickers, but at the same time, you do want some element of depth there.
Yeah. Yeah. They used to do like tryouts.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of schools. And like Texas Tech and Mike Leach used to do tryouts, and they got like decent results.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that I don't know. I'm excited that Texas is likely to have a good kicker next year. Either Sideshow Burt sticks it out unexpectedly and wins the job, or this new fellow Liberty Hill guy comes in and does it. But I do wonder in the NIL era if that's not a spot where you should consider some savings.
No, I get it. I think I totally understand what you're saying. So when you say savings, though, are you talking about maybe obviously not carrying both of them?
Yeah, or not not doing a lot of NIL. Like presumably, if Texas gets this kicker from Texas State, they will have had to have enticed him with some NIL.
No, that's fair.
Maybe
that makes
not,
a lot of sense.
But I think that maybe they do. You would think maybe like, hey, you can kick on national TV in big games. Wouldn't you rather do that in Texas than kick on ESPN Plus for Texas State?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
But I tend to think that there was NIL involved, and we'll see. Hopefully, if the season comes down to some big, long kicks, they are made, and we rejoice for this 60% chance later on.
Again, Joe Cook is putting in an RPM at 60% for this young man joining the team. We want you to join our team over at InsideTexas.com. We have the end all specials going on right now. That is, you get 4 months. That's a quarter of the year, ladies and gentlemen, for $1 American. Just go over to InsideTexas.com. Join us over there. It's 4 months for $1. And we're running a lot of things right now with our colleagues over at Academy Sports. In fact, we are having a tailgate, an Inside Texas tailgate at the Texas versus Texas A&M baseball game. That's going to be on 4/25. We want you to come over there. Academy is going to be there. We're going to be giving away loads of prizes. You've got an opportunity to win anything from a Blackstone grill, which is pretty awesome. I've got one of those. You've got a roadie, a Yeti roadie, a 10x10 Texas flag canopy, and University of Texas folding chairs, Yeti Ramblers. So no purchase is necessary. It's one entry per person, but you must be at the tailgate to enter and win. We would love to see you over there. I want to talk a little bit here about another person that might be entering the that is in the transfer portal that could be coming over to Texas. Again, another position of need. We talked about it, you and I did, in our spread 101, specifically to do with the tight end. Before we get what's that? Oh, is it 201? You're absolutely right. We talked about it with the 201. But before we get over there, I want to hear from our friend David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
So, Ian, I want you to remind the fine people that maybe did not watch Spread 201. If you have a mobile quarterback, a quarterback that could potentially run, what is the profile of the tight end that you might be looking for in that offense?
The running quarterback frees you up to use the receiving tight end who's not a good blocker.
Great. Now, we are talking about the tight end from California, Mr. Jack Indries, and it's a player that I should have known about. I didn't. He is currently the second rated tight end. What's that?
No one watches Cal.
No one watches Cal. Well, I should. I'm an alumni from their institutions, not Berkeley, but from the system. And I think the thing that really got me on this guy is this kid catches a lot of balls. I mean, he's very, very good on the receiving side of things. Not great in the blocking. But I think if we're trying to think about the profile of the tight end that we may want for an Arch Manning, this kid profiles pretty well. I know that we were talking a little bit about it in the group chat today. What do you see when you watch some highlights of Jack Indries?
He reminds me a lot of Gunnar Helm.
Yep.
Which is great because Gunnar Helm was here last year, and that was very productive for Texas. They actually have a lot of the same offensive schemes that Texas used to throw to Gunnar Helm. Cal was doing apparently the same thing. I couldn't believe how many of the like tight end leak release plays and tight end screens that Texas was running last year with Helm. I saw the exact same concepts on his highlights with Cal, and that's really great. Like the obvious utility is he's going to miss the spring for Texas,
right?
But if he's already really familiar with these concepts, and it's like, here, this is play X. It's the same thing as Cal's play Y.
Yeah.
That's going to be really helpful because, I mean, they need a tight end who can start immediately out of the portal.
Yeah.
So he's good at all the things that Texas likes to do with their tight ends. That's a big plus. When he came up in our group chat, somebody pointed out that he was in the portal. They were like, I don't know if he's a very good run blocker, but he catches a lot of balls and he's pretty good. And I was like, because they have Arch Manning this year, it doesn't really matter if he's a good run blocker.
Right.
He'd be nice if he was like a pretty smart, adequate pass blocker, but the run blocking doesn't matter. And then there was this remarkable PFF stat that our own Joe Cook pulled up.
Yes.
And he had ranked like third amongst tight ends in pass blocking.
Yeah.
And then like 33rd or something real bad.
Like out of 36.
In run blocking.
Yes.
So he was like the exact prototype of I was just laying out a blueprint where I was like, if we could just find a guy that hit these benchmarks, these random benchmarks, that'd be just great.
Sure.
Just get that. And he is that guy to a T, apparently.
And look, I mean, watching the highlights, I watched a bunch of it on YouTube today. The kid's tough. He's a tough kid. He plays really physical. A lot of his catches are contested. He does, when he does spring free, he's got some decent speed. I think I think the comp there with Gunnar Helm is actually pretty good.
Helm is bigger, I think. I don't know if you have the specs on injuries in front of you or near you. I can talk a little while you look it up if you like.
You're gonna, all right, yeah, go ahead. How that goes.
Helm is a little bit stronger of a blocker, I think. I'm gonna watch more injuries sometime soon, and I'll write about him on the website tomorrow.
Well, injuries is coming in at 6'4", 240.
Yeah, so Helm is longer, which may or may not be that great as an off-ball tight end, and he's heavier. He's also, I think, Helm is sneaky quick.
Yeah.
Like sometimes he did stuff like he made a move against Oklahoma on one route where I was like, you know what? He actually seems like he might have an unexplored ceiling in the NFL of route running that he wasn't even asked, that he didn't even have a chance to show off at Texas because of his lateral agility. Injuries does not have that. But he doesn't need it to do what Helm did because Helm didn't need it to do what Helm did.
Yeah, it's just staying on these stats a little bit. I mean, he caught 56 balls last year, 263 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was very much.
Wait. No. That can't be right. Say that again.
So during his most recent season in Berkeley, Andrews caught 56 balls.
Yeah.
623 yards.
623. I heard 250.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I mispronounced it.
Garbage. This guy's
that is a garbage stat. You're absolutely right. You were right to point that out. It's a very bad, especially on 56 balls. You're catching stuff in the backfield and just falling down at that point. There's no way that works. You got 2 touchdowns. I mean,
those are Greg Smith numbers. You remember Greg Smith?
Oh yeah. I think it's watching the highlights really suggested to me, especially their quarterback who's transferring over to Indiana to be with the greatest college football coach of all time he was the release valve for a lot of the plays. And not even just the checkdowns, but there were a lot of releases. There's a couple where he was using the old wheel route that you love so much, Ian. It was good to see. He had a relatively versatile route tree that he was running out of.
Yeah. He's pretty solid at those. A lot of them were came off of feigned blocks.
Yep.
And spread sets where he would be like kind of uncovered and just kind of run to an open spot. He's like the classic highly skilled college tight end who is like does not have the athleticism for the NFL, but knows all the tricks.
Yep.
And is good enough at everything to make it all work.
I want to talk a little bit about how a player like this with this profile would factor into a more gap run scheme heavy offense. I mean, what is he going to be asked to do as a blocker?
Ideally, very little.
Sure. Sure.
Ideally, like one of the things they could do if they have a gap scheme run game or just a quarterback option heavy run game,
right,
is you leave a defensive end unblocked on most of your plays, and then the tight end doesn't have to block them. So then the tight end can do one of two things. They can go down the field and hit a linebacker. They can flex out and block for a perimeter screen if you want to give the quarterback a choice to throw a perimeter screen. Or they can, best yet, release down the field like they're picking off a linebacker or safety, but then just run past them for like a quick pop pass over the middle. And he did some of that at Cal for sure. And he could do just a ton of that at Texas with Arch Manning. It makes me a little nervous. Indiana is investing in football in a very different way than they used to now. And if they are spending in anticipation of the revenue sharing, you're talking about this is going to be a big impact across college football, is that there are a lot of Big Ten schools like Indiana that might have spent, I'm pulling this number out of my butt, but let's say they spent like $2 or $4 million a year in NIL on their roster. Now, with the revenue sharing from the big TV contracts that they get from the Big Ten TV deal, they'll be spending like $15 million.
Right.
So what happens if you take like, how many Big Ten schools are there? Nobody even knows anymore.
I think there's 37.
Let's say there's 8 Big Ten schools that used to spend $2 to $4 million a year and are either this next year or the year after going to start spending 15 to 20 million a year.
Yep.
What is that going to do to the price of a tight end transfer? So that makes me a little bit nervous. We'll see if his we got to test that old adage about the placement of bros.
Well, it's a good point because, you know, he does clearly have a good relationship with his quarterback going into it. So, and he does have 2 more years of eligibility. You know, it's really just a question of, as you pointed out, you know, it's not as if he is going into, you know, he's leaving the ACC. So he's either going to be going to the SEC or the Big Ten, very likely. So, you know, he is going to get exposure, especially, you know, frankly, at a school like Indiana, where they are at least last year were certainly the story of the college football season. I think a lot of people are looking to see whether there's going to be a sophomore slump with that particular group, but
you know, it's going to be the story of the next season, though. Archibald Manning.
Well, I mean, I think the only story there is Arch throws bombs. And you know where else you can sometimes have bombs? Your kitchen and maybe your bath.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. Luxe. That's Luxe. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
Our very own Eric Nalin had an opportunity to get in touch with one of our sources today and posted this really fun article about what the source had to say is who are the best players in each room right now. And I kind of want to go through these a little bit with you, Ian, just to kind of get your thoughts on what some of these are. So starting at running back, Trey Wisner right now, second best he has been pretty much ever. So over Gibson. Gibson is running with better understanding of the run scheme, but I actually don't find it to be too surprising that Trey Wisner is being listed as one of the top running backs right now, just purely predicated on experience, especially when you consider how many reps the other kids got last year. But what are your thoughts on this? Were you surprised to hear Wisner was mentioned first?
No, I kind of wish he wasn't. I mean, I think we know what we have with Wisner.
You do know what we have with Wisner, sure.
Although I will say, I'm curious if he can gain weight. His spring listing was not heavier than last year, but then we did have a report that said that he had put on good weight. And those tend to be more accurate than the one-off weight listings that they put on the website. So, I mean, if he can play at how tall is he? Like 5'11"? If he can play maybe close to 210 and be able to hold up another season, playing as hard as he did last year, maybe a little smarter, maybe a little stronger through contact. I mean, that's a winning player. I
mean, he's clearly one of the toughest kids on the team. I mean, he just is absolute warrior last year. I mean, I like that he's getting these props in here because I do think that everything that we've heard about that room is leaning toward Gibson, is maybe toward the beginning of the year, Clark potentially, but I think given the context of the timing and where things are, having Trey listed as the number one right now makes a lot of sense to me. Moving on to wide receiver. And again, Eric points this out, that a lot of our top guys are out, certainly in some of these rooms, right? But given that the top guys are out, Livingstone right now, and the second best is maybe McCutcheon, because he's a good route runner. What are your thoughts on that? What do you want to see out of that room in particular? Because that is your favorite position in college football. It's the force multiplier by Ian.
Yeah, I want to see impact transfers arrive.
Okay, so people not currently in that room is what you're saying.
I mean, yeah, Livingstone sounds very intriguing, but I don't think we're quite hearing the level of hyperbole you need to be hearing to indicate a player of the caliber that I want to see Arch Manning throwing to as his primary guy. Is that fair?
Fair enough. Moving on to tight ends, obviously the absence of Jordan Washington. We've got Amari Winston. Good on him. I think that's really great that he's getting those props on there. Really not a room we can really dig too deep in. It's one of our thinnest rooms. Why we were talking about injuries earlier.
Yeah.
But it's moving on to offensive line. This one really made me happy. The two players that were mentioned first was DJ Campbell and then Trevor Gooseby. And I think that to me is really exciting. He is a player that I'm very excited to see have a really impactful year, especially, again, if we're going to be running more of those gap schemes. I think it's going to be really fun to watch him. What are your thoughts on the positive feedback we're hearing on DJ at this state?
I have the exact same reaction. I was pumped about him out of high school.
Yeah.
Seemed like the most no-brainer, awesome future lineman on the team. And we are hopeful, as we've explained in some videos, that the gap scheme will unleash a little more of what makes him special than the more highly coordinated outside zone blocks at which he was sometimes actually really good and other times mistake prone on. So,
and for those folks that may not have seen those videos, what we're excited about is the fact that this is a very large, violent man that can move, frankly. And having him pull on some of those counters is frankly just unfair. So I'm very, very excited to see that.
He is wide and quick.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Moving on to defensive tackle, Alex January is the most talented and the best so far. It's great. I'm really, really glad to hear that. Eric and I were sitting in Jerry World last year, and when Alex came out in the game against Ohio State, we were a little bit, honestly, to be completely transparent, I was a little worried somebody was injured, frankly, the fact that I saw Alex out there. But, he did. He really, the fact that they were giving him that responsibility in those games was a really great opportunity, I think, for that. So that's really good. I'm glad to hear his name. And the other thing, too, is, honestly, we're hearing a lot of great things about Justice Terry. A freshman coming into this position group, I think, is really fantastic. He is obviously highly touted, a very big get for Texas. And the fact that we're hearing good things about him at this state is really surprising. But, he's still processing everything. This is still very, very new for him. But he is a lot like, in at least my mind, a Colin Simmons-esque equivalent, just purely based on the fact that he's just an athletic freak. I mean, he's likely going to see the field simply predicated on his athleticism. Hopefully we can get between the ears going, but what are some things that you want to see or maybe hear out of camp with Justice Terry?
That's a good question. I mean, definitely that I think I want to hear he's going to play for sure.
Sure. Right. But what does that say? Like, does that worry you that we've got a true freshman coming in there in a room of need?
I mean, maybe a little.
Sure.
These 5-star defensive tackles, it's kind of tough these days because usually they are not ready to play in the trenches of college football.
Well, it's like the SEC as well. I mean, not to.
Yeah, the SEC in particular. Yeah. But they are hard to get.
Yeah, it's true.
The NIL investment is very high. So sometimes it's really tough. Like only the wealthiest programs have tended to go for these guys because what happens is you get them their first year, they usually can't play them very much because they don't know what they're doing. They haven't learned how to anchor against double teams and whatnot. They're not used to the offensive lineman being 320 pounds.
Sure. And that can move.
And all that. Their sophomore year, maybe they're great. Maybe they're still flashing. Their junior year, they're amazing. Great. We got one awesome year out of this guy. And then NFL.
Well, and it's also
like an elite quarterback might be dominant as a freshman, Yep. And you get 3 years.
Yeah, and I mean the point there too that you're making is, the quiet part is how much it costs to retain them, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the other side. You're starting to develop them, but it's not like they're not going to be receiving offers from other schools. So you're spending just as much money on retention, really, at that point. So it is. It's a tough situation because it's a position that requires, as you pointed out, not only development, but just time for their bodies to grow into it. So yeah, I agree with you on Justice Terry. I'd like to hear that the development is going really well. Moving over to edge, obviously Colin Simmons, his name is pointed out. Burke's doing well. His technique is improving. And interesting, like if Trey Moore counts in that position, we'd put him at edge after Simmons. I think we need to start. I think it's important for us to start thinking about moving Trey Moore, at least mentally in our minds, to that linebacker room. But as you've pointed out in some of your articles this offseason, I mean, Trey's going to be a very versatile player for this defense. And I can't imagine that they're just going to keep him in one spot throughout the year.
Yeah, it's not totally clear what they're going to do with that guy.
Yeah.
We know he'll probably just rush on the edge on third down, and that'll be awesome. Great. And on first and second down, like you're about to do linebacker, and the guy was like, Leonga Lafau has been like the linebacker of camp.
Yep.
Okay. Leonga Lafau and Anthony Hill and Trey Moore cannot play at the same time.
Yep.
An inside linebacker in Texas's current scheme.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what that means.
Well, I think what that means is, I mean, gosh, how can you put Hill, Simmons, Moore, Burke, and maybe LaFau on the field at the same time? I mean, it's
It's
a
possible.
desirable thing to do.
I wrote about it the other day. I think it's possible, but I don't know that they're going to do it.
Yeah.
I kind of doubt it. You just end up playing very small, and you have to rely on movement and blitzes and bringing numbers from from different places in the backfield. And that's just not really PK's thing. Is much more like he's very multiple, but he likes to have really fundamentally sound, sturdy play up front.
Yeah.
He's been really good at getting it, but we'll see. It may just it may be that they just rotate more at either spot with LaFau or Hill, just to get him reps and just like blitz him a ton, and then third down he'll get to. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out.
I think what's really going to be fascinating is that Ohio State game, right? We're not getting a warm up game, as it were, prior to that. So I do. Go ahead.
They'd keep their powder dry even if they did.
Yeah, that's fair. But I guess the point that I'm making is we're going to see probably more scheme early in the season than we normally do. And as a result of that, the good news is they've got an entire offseason to work to that point, but you're going to have some relatively inexperienced players in positions of need in a very high stakes game. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to watch. Moving over to linebacker, we do have LaFau has been the best in camp. I think if you read between the lines there, I think that just basically means he's the greatest linebacker ever because you've got Anthony Hill in the room. So there's no other way that you can deduct that. Cornerback, Manny Muhammad or Kobe Black. I think the nice thing is the word that was used by the source is Black is more comfortable than last year. And I think that's a big deal, especially at that position. It's a position that you got to live between the ears. And I think the fact that he's feeling more comfortable in that is going to make him faster. So he doesn't have to process everything as much and he can just play football and go. But hearing Kobe Black's name is definitely a positive in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. He was highly touted. He's very big and freakish. And even if he's not like the dude this year, they're going to need him to be the dude next year.
Yep.
And that position is so essential. Like that's one of the places where the big schools flex their muscle is by having ideally 2 or 3 guys that you would rather not throw at.
Yeah, no, of course. And then at safety, it's no surprise, Michael Taft, and then Jelani McDonald, which is good. At nose, we've got Wardell Mack, and Grayson Littleton has been pretty tough too. So any thoughts on Wardell Mack going into this?
I loved Littleton out of high school, but mostly just because he was really fast.
Yeah.
And twitchy. And I like that at corner. That's really valuable at nickel too. At nickel, you got to be able to think quickly.
Oh, sorry. I said nose. I meant nickel.
Yeah,
that's right.
I figured. Wardell Mack played there a little bit last year, and I dug up all the snaps where he did. And all 5 of them, there wasn't just a ton to glean from. He looked relatively comfortable for a freshman. He's kind of thick, which is potentially good.
Yeah, well, if he can move, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, he looked pretty good. I don't know. I wish we had a spring game to watch these guys move. That's usually pretty instructive. But I really don't know what to make of that position. Eric is pretty sure they're just going to move McDonald there.
Yeah.
They could also just move Gilbo back. If Kobe Black is better than Gilbo, like, what are we doing? Just move Gilbo back to nickel.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
So we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, and you may have, as you're listening to this list, you may have definitely not heard some names. And some of that is because of injury, unfortunately. Some of it is because of rep count. Some of it is just because of we're protecting them a little bit as we go through this, which is pretty similar to the rep count. But, this is still early days. I think it's important. What this really was Eric going in and really just getting a temperature check, seeing where things were at this state. That's why it's not necessarily surprising to hear a Trey Wisner or certainly a Colin Simmons is going to be a name listed there. Obviously, one of the big question marks going into next season and wasn't listed on this was quarterback. So maybe we'll find out what's going to happen there. A lot of competition in that room. So we will. Oh, whoa! Our producer just joined us. I'm a little bit frightened now. What's going to happen? But that is all I've got for you. Anything I'm not going to cut you off, Ian. I promise. Is there anything that you would like to leave the fine people with? I'm going to put my hands up here so nobody can do anything. No? Okay, great. It's okay. We don't have to leave
the without the long preamble.
No, it's okay. I can understand why you might be a little bit gun shy.